Welcome to Unity of Wilmington's virtual service. My name is Reverend Nikki Golden. Reverend Mindy Tucker will be giving the talk today. We want to remind you of three things. You are a beloved expression of God. You are here for a holy purpose, and I believe that purpose is to learn how to love as fully and as completely as possible. And the third one is that we are always in the right place at the right time right now.
Listen as your day unfolds, challenge what the future holds. Try and keep your head up to the sky. Lovers, they may cause you tears. Go ahead, release your fears. Stand up and be counted. Don't be ashamed to cry. You gotta be bad. You gotta be bold. You gotta be wiser. You gotta be hard. You gotta be tough. You gotta be stronger. You gotta be cool. You gotta be calm. You gotta stay together. All I know, love will save the day. Herald what your mother said. Read the books your father read. Try to solve the puzzles in your own sweet time. Some may have more cash than you. Others take a different view. My, oh my, hey, hey, hey. You gotta be bad, you gotta be bold, you gotta be wiser. You gotta be hard, you gotta be tough, you gotta be stronger. You gotta be cool, you gotta be calm, you gotta stay together. All I know, love will save the day. Don't ask no questions, life goes on without you, leaving you behind. You can't stand the pace. The world keeps on spinning, can't stop it if you try to. Best part is danger staring you in the face. Remember, listen as your day unfolds. Challenge what the future holds. Try and keep your head up to the sky. Lovers, they may cause you tears. Go ahead, release your fears. Stand up and be counted. Don't be ashamed to cry. You gotta be bad. You gotta be bold. You gotta be wiser. You gotta be hard. You gotta be tough. You gotta be stronger. You gotta be cool. You gotta be calm. You gotta stay together. All I know, love will save the day.
Love does indeed save the day when we're bolder and wiser. This past week at Unity of Wilmington in this building, we had a plumbing challenge. Now, it turns out that it was just our reverse osmosis system for the water fountain on the school side, and somehow a relief valve had popped open, and once we figured that out and closed that relief valve, the system was able to regain pressure and allow that water to flow, which got me thinking about open and closed systems, about the mechanics and the metaphysics of open and closed systems. My dad was an mechanical engineer, so this kind of curiosity comes naturally to me. And in an open system, there's both an exchange of energy and mass. So if there was a hot cup of tea in an open system, the hot cup of tea would be just sitting there, and the heat would be escaping, and the steam would be escaping. In a closed system with a hot cup of tea, you put a lid on top, the heat still escapes, but the steam stays inside, so there's no exchange of mass. And in an isolated system, you take that hot tea and you put it in a thermos, you screw the lid on, neither the steam nor the heat can escape, and so your tea stays warm or hot for a long period of time. So there's a time and a place for every kind of system. Metaphysically, meditation practices fit in these same kind of systems. When there is an open system for meditation practice, it's like we're sitting there and we're open to the voice of spirit. We're open to hearing our inner wisdom and receiving that inner guidance and recognizing that voice, that message that comes from within when we're in open meditation, and we know we're doing it when we hear something. I knew I was in open meditation when I was sitting there in Connecticut, I'm sitting in meditation, and I heard, Wilmington is how I got to Unity of Wilmington. I kid you not. In a closed system, we have a generative energy that builds and builds and builds on itself. So in a secular situation, it's like a pep rally where, before we go to a sporting event, we go, Tampa Bay, or we go, Kansas City. We go to a pep rally because we want to start moving and building that generative energy. So in meditation, in a closed system, that generative energy that we're working on building comes from chanting, whether it's kirtan or a mantra or an affirmation. We're using that generative energy to modify our neural pathways with thoughts and feelings so that when we come back into the world, we're in the groove. We're in a groove of whatever we've been chanting and meditating and holding for ourselves with thought and feeling in that closed system. And in an isolated system in meditation, it's perfect for integration. It's perfect for taking everything we've just learned, everything we've just been exposed to, everything we already know. We come into a closed system and allow that awareness and that knowledge to permeate every fiber of our being and every cell of our body so that we can come back into the world hot and fresh and full and solid. There's a time and place for every kind of system. And then I got to thinking about systems of thinking. What kind of systems of thinking support our spiritual growth? What kind of open system of thinking do we have? What kind of closed system of thinking do we have? What kind of isolated system, and when is it appropriate to use each system to support the expansion of our consciousness and the inspiration of our personal transformation? I just get curious about things like that. So there's a woman named Maria Nemeth. She's a master coach for personal development, executive development, and she has developed something she calls a 4-box model. In Unity, we talk about it from time to time, and it looks like this. Number 1, we start with a conclusion, and I'm going to start with a closed example. So the conclusion would be that left-handed people are more artistic and creative than right-handed people. And then we go look for evidence. Well, how do I know that? My Aunt Marianne was left-handed, and she was creative and artistic. And therefore, I'm going to then, that's going to influence how I act. I'm going to go look at all the people in the world, and I'm going to say, are you right-handed? Well, then you're not creative or artistic. Are you left-handed? Well, then you must be creative and artistic. And then that's going to influence how other people talk and feel and do and the way they are in the world, because that's what we do. We're influencers, and which is going to come back and support my original conclusion. Now, that's a closed system. And we're going to be in that closed system even if the evidence that we see in the world doesn't support our original conclusion. We're going to modify somehow our mind to still be able to come back. Like, we'll just ignore that evidence. Well, That's an anomaly. It doesn't really count, or that's whatever. In his book, The Parasitic Mind, Dr. Gad Saad shares a story about a researcher who is working on supporting her conclusion, which is that Israeli guards demonstrate an extreme violence toward Palestinian women. Israeli guards demonstrate an extreme violence toward Palestinian women prisoners. So she goes into detention centers because she's now going to find evidence she knows about a high number of rapes and other physical trauma, and she doesn't find that evidence. She doesn't find that evidence no matter how many detention centers she goes to. But she comes out of this research project with the conclusion that Israeli guards demonstrate extreme violence against Palestinian women. How can that be? Well, she says the reason is, the evidence is, because there is very little record of rape or physical trauma, those Israeli guards consider Palestinian women subhuman and therefore unworthy of any attention they might give them. In a closed system, we see what we want to see, right or wrong, black or white, religious or secular, polarized or unpolarized. In a closed system, we see what we want. Now, in an open system, we have our conclusion, and we go to find evidence. And if we are truly in an open system, there's an exchange of energy. So with an exchange of energy, we are open to new and different ideas. We're open to finding something different. So in an open system, I might discover that there truly are right-handed people who are artistic and creative. I mean, after all, I'm artistic and creative, and I'm right-handed. I might discover new evidence, which will then augment and change and shift how I act in the world, how others act in the world, and then I get to reform a new conclusion. Same with Israeli guards. Could have gone into that evidence phase after making the conclusion and eventually recognized, gee, I wonder, based on this evidence, if Israeli guards are actually decent human beings. There is a time and place for each kind of system, whether it be mechanics or metaphysics or thinking, because the way that the mechanics of these systems work is all based on energy. It's all based on algorithms. Algorithms are designed to go out and collect evidence that already supports an affinity that we have. It doesn't mean that we're going to have that affinity or that the evidence that we find is going to support that affinity, but algorithms are designed to go out and find likeness. And in fact, the mechanics of algorithms is just what the law of attraction is all about. Like attracts like. Here's a beautiful meaning. Like energy attracts like energy. And I don't know if you can see the subtext, but the subtext says each of us is like a radio station constantly broadcasting signals about ourselves and our life. The people and situations that match those signals are ones that will tune into us and be drawn into our experience of life. So the internet, which uses algorithms all the time, is merely imitating our tendency to seek out likeness. It's imitating our tendency to find a vibrational match. Because why? Well, we're influencers. Influencers. It's not a word that I would usually use to describe humanity. Hello, influencers. Hello, influencers. I really mean I'm talking to you because you're an influencer. It's not a term that trips off the tongue lightly, easily, and it's not cool, and it's not clever, but it's true. So what you going to do? We are influencers, and we have an impact on our environment just by the energy that we're bringing into it. Because rare is it that we're actually in an environment that's a closed system, that's an isolated system. We're usually in a closed or an open system. So if we're in a room and Debbie Downer comes in, Debbie Downer, her energy is going to be like a wet blanket over our vibrancy. If Lizzie, the life of the party, Lizzie, comes in the room, her brightness, her light, her vibrancy, her excitedness, her energy is going to change the dynamic of the room that we're in. Now, there are some people who are so committed to their conclusion that they cannot be moved. Their conclusion to be happy all the time, they're not going to be moved by Debbie Downer. Their conclusion that life is hard and sad, they're not going to be moved by life of the party Lizzie. And what happens to people who are sticking to their story, who are staying with the conclusion that they've developed about themselves, they cannot remain in that environment. They have to oscillate out. So if you're a person who's committed to living a life full of joy and love and peace and excitement and harmony and strength and all of those things that we consider really wonderful in the spiritual realm, and you come into an environment that's down, you're not going to be able to stay there. You're going to oscillate out because like attracts like. And conversely, if you come into an environment that's happy, 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 and joyful, and people are talking and relationships are healthy, and you're like, you're not going to be able to stay there either because like attracts like. Amazon and Netflix have mastered this algorithm. How many times have you been on the computer and had something pop up? Because you purchased or watched X, then you'll probably like Y. It's an algorithm. And they are designed to attract us to what we're already attracted to. Like attracts like. So whether the energy that is being put out in our online shopping, in the energy match that we're looking for in our social media, and the energy match that we're looking for, whatever we're looking for on whatever web browser we're looking, the algorithm is going to support us in finding that energetic match. So are the flags going up yet? Because eventually you want to hear something that comes out of a 1960s television show that is something like Danger, Will Robinson. Danger. Danger. The danger isn't that we are having a like attracts like experience. The danger is that we may not be aware that we are going down a rabbit hole that we may not want to go down. This is my point. The algorithms we experience on our web browsers and social media work because they are a reflection of our own inner algorithm. What we are experiencing out there is a reflection of the algorithm that we're actually holding in our mind and our body and in our cells, in our hearts and our thinkings and our feelings. The patterns of optimization those algorithms use are the same patterns our mind uses. The danger lies not in the energetic match, but in our ability or inability to be conscious about it. So now, this moment, it is more important than it ever has been in the history of humankind to become aware of our own thoughts and our own feelings and the energy that we are emanating into the world, because we are going to find a vibration, we are going to find that energetic match being reflected back to us. Be aware. Become aware of what you're thinking and what you're feeling, because you will, in your own self, in your own algorithm, are going to find an energetic match in the world out there. Carey Nieuwhof, a man who used to be an attorney but is now the pastor of one of the largest churches in North America, has written about leadership and algorithms and spirituality, and he articulates 4 potential challenges that come from an awareness or a lack of awareness about algorithms and how we are playing them out in our lives. The first one is the potential challenges. If without awareness, we're going to loop into a deeper confirmation bias. And that's what happens in a closed system. We have a conclusion. We find evidence to support the conclusion. We act like it's true. We influence other people to act like it's true, and therefore the conclusion is true. So algorithms, they don't challenge us. They cement what we think we know. And there are a lot of things we don't know. We have biases and we have blind spots. And it's up to us to bring light to the biases and to the blind spots so that we can say, oh, is this an algorithm? Is this I want to play out? Is this an energy I want to continue to match in the world? Or is it a confirmation bias that I want to go deeper, spiral? Number 2, we become more tribal and extreme. Now, we've just had a tough election, so I don't really need to say a whole lot about this particular potential challenge. Yet there are some really good questions that we can use to assess if this is a challenge for us. Am I more loving today than I was before? Do I think I'm more right today than a decade ago? Start asking those questions so that supports your process of self-awareness. And I think the last one is really, really good. Am I more rigid or am I more curious? Am I more rigid or am I more curious? Deeply held beliefs are deeply held beliefs. But rigidly held beliefs are different than those deeply held beliefs. And we'll know that our beliefs are rigid because in explaining them to somebody, we usually yell and we usually start to manipulate and try to control and engage in a series of disrespectful behaviors. So am I more rigid? Or am I more curious? Because curiosity will take us deeper into a truth we know in an open system. Number 3 is our choices usually end up becoming more limited than greater. And I know this because I listen to Pandora. I have a favorite Broadway show tune station, and I used to listen to a whole lot of different shows on this same station. But after I watched Hamilton 3 times on Disney+, my Pandora somehow knows that. And I'm going to say 50% of the show tunes that I listen to on this station now come from Hamilton. And then when I watched Newsies on Disney+, I started getting selections from Newsies too. So I know that my choices become more limited when I only follow my algorithms without conscious interruption or conscious intervention. And number 4, we lose our ability to think freely. We start thinking narrow and narrower and narrower and narrower. So we need to think broader. I mean, that's a challenge, right? To think broader and to invite ourselves to not just read what we've always read and watch what we've always read and had those inputs that we've always had or become accustomed to. And I'll just give you an example. For this lesson today that I am sharing with you, I read or reread 3 books, half a dozen blogs, and countless inquiries on Google about thermodynamics, about lemmings, because I thought I was going to talk about lemmings, but I didn't talk about lemmings, about biases, about what it means to have an algorithm, the upsides, the downsides, the pitfalls, and the pleasures of having it. I mean, it's like, if I didn't do that, I would come and say the same thing to you every time, because I would be losing my ability to think freely. I would be narrowing the message that I'm inviting you to become an influencer and an innovator about. Hello, influencer and innovator. Carrie Nieuwhof said there's 3 things that we can consciously participate in order to become more mindful about our personal algorithms. There's no right and wrong. There's no good and bad. But there is this urge in us. I mean, we're hardwired to innovate. We're hardwired to be evolutionary. Hello, evolutionaries. We're hardwired to do that. So here are 3 things we can do to support that expansion of consciousness, that awareness we can bring to the vibrational energy that we are emitting and attracting in the world. And the first one is to read and listen widely. If you are only reading fiction, break that habit and bring some nonfiction into your life. I used to really pretty much only read fiction, and then for work I would read all those other things. But now on my reading table next to my chair, oh my gosh, it's all nonfiction. Cast, Isabel Wilkerson, Untamed, Glennon Doyle. I'm reading a book called How to Have Impossible Conversations, and then I have, I don't know how many other metaphysics textbooks that I just need to keep handy, but they're all nonfiction. So I've really pushed my boundary with inviting myself to listen and read more widely, to take a look at my biases and measure them to new information, to information beyond what we were taught. I was asked the other day the question, did you ever in your educational process learn about Jim Crow laws? And I thought, yes, I did. Yes, I did. And then I felt really proud of myself. Wow, my high school was very progressive. I learned about Jim Crow laws. But what were they? Oh, they're all about water fountains. And today, I know so much more because I was willing to be open, bring my biases, unconscious as they are, into the light. Number 2, learn from people we disagree with instead of judging them. Now, in more traditional versions of the Bible, in John 7:24, Jesus is quoting as saying, and this may sound familiar to you, judge not according to appearance, but judge righteous judgment. Now, I find the Message translation much more inviting, much more innovative, more of an influence into how I want my energy to be. Don't be nitpickers. Jesus said that. Don't be nitpickers. Use your head and heart. Know what you know and feel what you feel, and use what you know and what you feel to ramp yourself up into an innovative way of being, into an expanded consciousness, into a way that brings more influence into your environment, to discern what is right, to test what is authentically right. When we have those difficult conversations and we're open, in an open system, we are open to expanding our worldview. We're open to having a bigger or a deeper understanding of something that's going on, a system that exists in our environment. And finally, number 3, embrace first principles thinking. First principles thinking. I had to look it up. And the reason I had to look it up is because it was so close to some words that we use in Unity all the time. Return to principle. Seek first the kingdom. And so I thought, well, isn't that perfect? But what first principles thinking is don't believe that things have to be done the way they've always been done. Take what you want, take what you desire, deconstruct it to its most basic foundational place, and then build what you want from there. First principles thinking removes or lifts or just sets aside binary dynamics. So it takes out right or wrong, either or, black or white, stay or go. It takes all of that binary dynamic out of the creative process that we're bringing to a foundational desire. And it builds it using a spiritual and multidimensional realm to manifest. It's like the energy is the same, but the mass becomes different. I hope that makes sense. First principles thinking opens our minds. It takes good ideas. Elon Musk says, good ideas are always crazy until they work. So think about those crazy good ideas you have, and from that foundational place, generate that energy and imagine where they can go. Because you are an influencer. You are an innovator. And you are an evolutionary. Martin Luther King Jr. said this: we have before us the glorious opportunity to inject a new dimension of love into the veins of our civilization. So my question to you is this: are you interested in this opportunity? Are you interested in injecting love into the veins of our civilization? I mean, injecting love there's nothing more fundamental than beginning with love. So, influencer, innovator, evolutionary. Some of those words are resonating with you right now. And if you are interested in this opportunity, Unity of Wilmington is offering you an affirmation. I break free of the limitation of my algorithms. I am an influencer and an innovator for love in 2021. I break free of the limitations of my algorithms. I am an influencer, an innovator for love in 2021. We're going to leave that slide up as we come into a time of meditation, a time of integration, a time of taking that new evidence, a time of taking some evidence that has a new resonance, of allowing that shape to influence and bring us home to our deeply seated belief that we have a divine nature, that we are good, and wholeness is our birthright. We allow every bit a vibrational energy that has come into our field that is not a match for the truth of who we are, to shimmer away, to fall as easily as the snow in winter and the rain in spring, the dust motes in the sunlight, leaves in the fall. Allow their natural life to come to an end. We begin to shine the light on the thoughts and feelings, the likenesses that we've developed, that we want to maintain and strengthen, that we want to bring into harmony with our environment. Starting fresh from the most fundamental place we can find, in a spiritual and multi-dimensional realm that is pure potential, infinite possibility, and the seed of manifestation. That injection of love in the veins of civilization, right here, right now, in every fiber of our being, in every cell of our body. So it is, and so we let it be. Take a breath. Come back to this time and place with gratitude. Gratitude for your courage. Gratitude for your nature of knowing that nothing is in between you and love.
Strong, be brave, be beautiful. One of these days we'll have it all. If you believe we can. Wake up and hold your head up high. Challenge your future to a fight. Open up your hands. No more house of lonely tears. Slam the door on all your fears. They're not welcome here. Anything is possible, possible. You gotta believe and see that love is unstoppable. You can never be too far, never be too gone, but you can turn it around. You will see that love is unstoppable. Sometimes life seems so typical. Some days you might see a miracle if you believe you can. This world, this cool, this crazy place makes you feel like you're losing everything. Your mind, your faith, your way. But you can find it all again. Reclaim your innocence. You know it's not the end. Anything is possible, possible. You gotta believe and see that love is unstoppable.
is unstoppable.
And we know that your love is a powerful influence in this world. If you've been touched, moved, or inspired by anything that you have experienced, if you have felt your heart open, share that with someone. Tell them how much you are loved.
So, influencers, innovators, evolutionaries, get going.